First 10 years of my career was really tough. It was late nights, it was weekends, and you just had to come up with every trick in the book to keep yourself going. Yeah. Being asked to take up the CEO role, I was absolutely petrified. Yet, my heart was telling me too good an opportunity to turn down. So a lot going on in my heart that day, and I didn't actually say yes straight away. You think you know a company inside out and backwards, but you only know that sliver, that perspective that you have in a particular role. Yeah. And the greatest surprise to me was when I moved from new business into general management, and my learning curve was really steep.
That need to be liked over being able to then make those difficult conversations. What impact has that had on you?
I think it's the single most biggest challenge that I've had to overcome. Not many people will like at times, because they're the tough ones, they're the difficult ones, I'll have to introduce a change, or I'll have to stand up and be honest with people around where the company currently is. And that has been very, very difficult. The challenge is when to listen and when to direct. And I don't always get that right.
Hello and welcome to the Courageous Leaders podcast. I am Joanna Howes, your host, and this podcast is to help leaders access their courageous zone so they can be the leader they want to be. And in this week's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing Claire Humphris, CEO of Iris London. Claire was one of the original founders 25 years ago, and they have gone now to 700 people globally. We cover so much in this interview, from becoming CEO when you've been at a company for so many years, what it's like to be in that consensus decision-making as a team, to now that sole responsibility as the CEO. The impact of needing to be liked as a leader and the consequences that can have, and how Claire has lived by feel the fear and do it anyway, and talks about what that's been in her experience. And lastly, how sport and business has helped Claire go out of her comfort zone, reach for more, and be the CEO today that is driving Iris to success. Let's get started. Claire, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for your time today. It's lovely to have you here.
Great to be here, thank you.
Thank you. So you're going to have my favourite question that I ask all our guests is, what does courageous leadership mean to you?
I'm going to talk about a saying that you'll have heard many times before, okay. But for me, it is about feel the fear and do it anyway. Because I think that every day of leadership requires courage. Every day there'll be doubts and you'll hear the fear. But as a leader, you really do need to act. I think leadership, first and foremost, is behavioural. So it's about leading by example, but also sometimes acting when others don't know what to do or are unwilling to make a call. So, yeah, but I don't think the fear ever goes away.
It's annoying, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. And I think you just get used to sitting with it, and it's always uncomfortable, but you get comfortable with discomfort, if that makes sense.
So check, I'm guessing you have read the book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. Highly recommend anyone listening, watching this, do get the book. I think that changed my life, just seeing that sentence, isn't it? Just feel the fear and do it anyway. Yeah. And that saying is like, what's the worst thing that can happen? And just checking, actually, can I handle that? And if I can, okay, well then act, it's okay. For you, so I really want to know, when has that happened for you, when you did feel that fear and you were like, oh, I know I've got to act because this is what I do. But when did that happen for you?
I mean, it does happen a lot. I would say that most recently it was being asked to take up the CEO role. I was absolutely petrified. And yet my heart was telling me that I really, it was an opportunity, too good an opportunity to turn down. So there was a lot going on in my heart that day, and I didn't actually say yes straight away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I said, can I think about it? Which surprised my boss.
Because he was like, thought you'd be like, yes.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? And how dare you turn it down? But I really did. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to do it, and I wasn't sure whether I could overcome my fear. So,
what was the fear?
I think the fear it's a very public position. It's very easy to be part of a team, to sit on the sidelines. It's easy to be a team member.
Yeah.
And I've all throughout my career worked really hard as a team member, but I haven't been solely responsible for something before. I've always been partly responsible. And so there was that. And then there was also the public nature of the role and the fear of judgment. It's very easy, and I have been part of conversations before when you can criticise people in leadership positions and say, if it was me, I would have done that. I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done that. And why have they, he, she, why have they done that? Yeah. But I realised that I was going to have to get comfortable with people saying the same about me. And it was that really that I hesitated around, because I knew I had to find a new level of resilience.
Okay. So how long did that thinking take before you did say yes?
It took a good couple of days.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And did you need to get support with it? Did you talk it through with quite a few people?
I talked it through with my husband,
yeah.
Who he used to work at Iris. So Is
that how you met?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, so he hasn't worked there now for about 15 years. But yeah, he is my best friend. I really respect his advice. I know he knows me, and I know he knows Iris, so his advice would count because he knows what it is I'm taking on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, he was surprised as well at the decision, and then said, well, why are you even hesitating?
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah. As I say, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
You could have done it.
Yeah.
So what I think is incredible is you were one of the founders of Iris. So is it 25 years?
It's 25 years this year.
Wow.
So in May this year, yeah.
So going from 25 years in the same company to now being the CEO, what's that journey been like for you?
I mean, I often get asked this question because people say, how can you stay in one place?
Especially in this day and age.
In this day and age, 25 years. And I must admit, it is unusual. I think the fact that Iris has changed so much over the years keeps it interesting. I think marketing has changed beyond recognition. And so to survive and keep up, then Iris as a company has had to continually innovate and evolve. I've always felt that we were quite chameleon-like, really. And sometimes the pace at which Iris changed felt like it was very hard to keep up with.
Yeah.
So the thing that it felt like no one was in control of, but obviously we were. The thing was moving quicker than some of us at times, or our own learning journey. Also, moving around the company helps. Okay. So I've had different roles over the year. So I started out in account management. I then did 7 years running new business globally, which I absolutely loved. And then from new business, I then flipped into the general management role. And what is really interesting is that you think you know a company inside out and backwards, but you only know that sliver, that perspective that you have in a particular role.
Yeah.
And the greatest surprise to me was when I moved from new business into general management, and my learning curve was really steep. And here was I thinking, I'm employee number one. I know everything there is.
Got this.
Yeah, I've got this. Oh, I mean, in new business, you are actually in a bubble. Yeah, and you're quite protected from the ins and outs of running a P&L.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about it. You just have to
bring it in.
Yeah, bring it in and get people to perform at their best. Pitches are exciting.
Yeah.
That's where the magic happens. Yeah. The role, not saying the role is easy,
no,
but it's definitely not as complex as general management.
So with this perspective change,
you to tuck the other side of your head behind.
Okay. That's all right. So where you say, steep learning curve and the perspective changed as you moved around the company, how's that perspective changed now? Because how long have you been doing CEO role?
3 years.
3 years now, CEO. How's that perspective changed for you? And also now sitting in that public arena, how's that developed over the last 3 years?
I think I've reconnected with clients again, or reconnected with the teams that work on clients as well, and realised how tough it can be. Pitching is very simple, really, because you have to just find the strategic and creative answer to a brief without collaborating. You do it in isolation. Whereas the tough part of agency life is the collaboration with the client. It's the changing of an idea to accommodate lots of different perspectives. So that reconnection with the client side of the business has been really interesting. And then with regards to the judgment part, pretty early on I realised that I just had to let it go, just forget about it. You can't control what people are going to say about you. All you can do is know that you are acting with your best intentions. You're making the decision based on the available information you've got at the time.
Yeah.
And that as long as you feel like you're always doing the right thing for the majority, then you are not going to keep everybody happy.
Yeah.
And that has been quite hard to come to terms with. But with regards to judgment, I've literally just have to ignore anything. And I purposely don't go into situations sometimes where I might overhear things, or
you just want to be away from it.
Blank it out.
Yeah.
Because it could really mess with your mind, and it could interfere with your decision making, and you have to stay objective.
Have you had, I'm just curious, where judgment has obviously been quite a thing for you to overcome and let go of, has there then been a time in your career where you felt judged, and that was a time where that was actually quite difficult, that's created this now?
I don't know if it has come about as a result of a career-based decision. I just think I think you're quite aware, because of the society we live in, that people in public positions, or people who lift their head above the parapet even, and dare to be the first at something or do something different, there is a barrage of commentary that you see on social media. It's not, people aren't saying things about me on social media. It's not a public position, but you're aware of how people talk down the pub. Yeah. You're aware that part of being an employee is
to talk about the leaders and what they're not doing.
Exactly, that's the currency, isn't it? And having been in that position for 25 years, I was well aware, and party to it.
You do, don't you? You join in to connect. So is it for you now a really strong internal moral compass for you, so that if you know you feel good in here, you can then let go of what's going on outside?
Yes. It is now about knowing that I've weighed up all the available information, and that I'm doing the right thing for the long term. I'm doing the right thing for the financial health of the company. And in a way, it's a sort of duty of care now, that even if there's a difficult decision to make around a client or a team, usually it's people-based, is the most difficult decisions to make, that it is the right thing for the long-term evolution of the company. Yeah, because it can't... and one of the things I've also learned over the last 3 years is that company is this organic thing that will continually change. And the moment you make a decision and get something right, as much as you'd love it to stay fixed, it doesn't. Next week it'll be different. It will change again, and you might have to go back on a decision that you made because new information has come to light, and you can't afford to beat yourself up about that.
No, and you've just made me think. I'm reading Adam Grant's book at the moment. It's all about Think Again. Really, really good book. And he's saying that great leadership is the art of rethinking, the art of you make that decision and realise that you do need to change your mind. If new data, new evidence or something changes, actually the power of rethinking is extraordinary for leaders. And the ones that kind of go, well, I've made that decision now, we just have to go down that way, or can't change it, it works. That's where we can get stuck. Yeah. And I'm thinking that's part of Iris's success, is you've constantly keep rethinking about how do we stay relevant, how do we stay on top. And have you had to apply that to your own leadership style? Because I know you said about comfortable being part of a team of leaders. How did you rethink your leadership style? Suddenly then your identity becomes a CEO. I'm guessing amongst all the people that used to be your peers.
It's difficult. It's difficult because you're used to being part of consensus decision making, but usually being led by somebody else. And you may not like the decision that they make, but you go with it. Or you have to say your piece and say why you don't agree with it, and see if you can change that decision. But if you can't, you've either got to get on the bus or leave. And so the thing I found quite difficult was I was quite comfortable sort of hosting the discussion and hearing lots of different points of view. But then how do I synthesize that and say, right, based on what I've heard, I think we need to go in this direction, especially when this direction is different to the direction that you came into the meeting thinking that you needed to go down. And I have learnt to, when I first took the job, I felt like I felt a pressure to know the answer all of the time. Whereas now I've learnt to sort of hold my opinions quite lightly, because I've only got one perspective and I do need to listen to all the perspectives. The challenge is when to listen and when to direct. And I don't always get that right. Sometimes the debate will go on for too long.
Yep.
and then I'll have a friendly peer who'll say, the time for consensus is over now.
Come on.
You do. You're not going to reach agreement with everybody. You're still going to have some dissent.
Yeah.
You have to decide how important that dissent is and whether those people are willing to get on the bus.
Yeah.
And usually they are.
And that's the thing, isn't it? You can't keep everyone happy. But if you've got a culture and that trust in the team, that even if your decision isn't the one going forward, it's that you stay on the bus because you support your teammates. Yeah. Okay, look, I didn't get through this time, but actually my decision might get through next time, but I'm not going to be one of those, oh, I told you so if it didn't work, or I'm going to be disruptive if it doesn't work. I've got a leader at the moment who's got someone in their team where two of the leadership team aren't sure if they should be there, but they're adamant they should. And you kind of go, well, they're making the decision that they're staying, so you've got to join. You've then got to try and help this person be successful. There's no point just keep complaining and be disruptive. Give it a go. Try and back it, because I think otherwise you just get misalignment. You do. And in the grand scheme of things, life is pretty short. So you've got to make your mind up that you are going to commit to this thing. And if you're not, then very quickly you need to decide that you're going to go and do something else, because that no man's land with all of that cognitive dissonance is a really difficult place to be. And it leads to a lot of unhappiness, I think. Yeah. And so one thing I've always said to myself is you've got to commit to this decision, this change, this role, this company, and if you're not committed, then go and do something else, because there are many possibilities in life, aren't there? And this is just one thing that we could be doing. Yeah. Something, just changing tact a little bit, something that I'm very interested in, because it's coming up a lot with the leaders I'm speaking to, is this need to be liked. This fear, especially as you've been in the company so long, I'm going to guess you're very well liked, people know you very, very well. That need to be liked over being able to then make those difficult conversations. What impact has that had on you as you've grown in your role?
Yeah, I think it's the single most biggest challenge that I've had to overcome. You recognise that you're being liked by lots of people, particularly as you're more junior or you're in a role like new business. Your being liked is a superpower in a way, because it enables you to motivate teams, to put a lot of energy into projects. You can get things moving. You can make stuff happen because you know that people are doing it for you. Yeah. Reluctantly at times, but once they get into it, then they're glad that they didn't do it. And then I think with the CEO role, it was a biggest challenge for me has been I'm going to make decisions that not many people will like at times, because they're the tough ones, they're the difficult ones, I'll have to introduce a change, or I'll have to stand up and be honest with people around where the company currently is. And that has been very, very difficult. But you've just got to accept that in the long run, when all is evaluated, people will realise that you made the right decision and you did the right thing. But you have to accept in that moment. They may not happen. No.
Yeah. I think Jim Collins talks a lot about you're not a leader to be liked. You're a leader to make the right decisions. And I remember when I worked at VCCP, I was pulled into a room and given some very difficult feedback. Looking back now, it's the best thing that could have happened. But at the time, it was really, really difficult. And I know those leaders in that moment were not liked by me. I was like, no, I don't like you at all. Yeah. But then I learned, I could see the gift they gave me and the respect I have for them now. And I think so much in leadership is recognise, okay, I'm not liked now, but one day I might get a message with someone 5 years later going, thank you. I can actually see where you were coming from, but at the time it was too emotional for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's that courage in a leader to know that it is the right thing, even if in this moment that person can't see it right now.
Yeah. That's it. You have to reframe it in a way, because when you look at all the people over the course of your career, the ones that you can credit with progressing you the most, they weren't the easiest people to work with. And they challenged you and they pushed you, and you often went home from work swearing, and your other half would hear all about that person. But that struggle with your relationship with them, and maybe it was the struggle with the truth that they were telling you.
Yeah.
That is the thing that pushed you on, that has formed the person that you are today.
Yeah.
So there is a lot to be grateful for with those difficult people, and I constantly have to remind myself when I'm thinking about the team. It really isn't about whether I like somebody. It is about how good are they at their job. And they may not be easy to get along with, but that isn't the criteria upon which to judge them.
No, and you just made me think in terms of the difference between character and competence. For you, what comes first in terms of when you connect with someone or feel like you can trust them? Is it from their character or their competence?
It is usually through character, because I'm quite an instinctive leader. And I do like to connect with people first. I need to feel like I understand where they're coming from. I also like them to understand me, and know that I have good intentions for them, for the company, and you also need to make that connection so that people will be honest with you as well. Because sometimes the competency can be a bit clouded, because you won't really hear the truth. People will just tell you what they think you want to hear. So character for me first. And then obviously people are judged on their results.
Yeah. So as long as they can then bring that competency.
Yeah.
So you can't have one without the other.
No.
But in terms of that character is really key.
Yeah.
What you said there, like people tell you what you want to hear. I've been into many organisations, and the feedback I get from the teams is, we only tell them the good news or what they want to do. Can you suss when you're not being told the truth?
You can suss when I know when I'm not being told the truth, because I start to find people a bit puzzling, and you're thinking, why? They're a bit of an enigma, because I sit in these meetings with them and they say all of the right things, and then we walk out the meeting, and then weeks later their behaviour hasn't matched their stated intention. And so you go back again and you have another conversation.
Yeah.
And then you start to realise it's actually because they're not telling you the truth in those situations. And maybe it might not be because they're manipulative. It might be because they themselves are not recognising that their behaviour isn't matching their intention. And that's when, as a leader, you have to point that out. So you have to, after a while, say, we've spoken about these things. You told me that you really, really wanted to do X, but you haven't done X. What's standing in your way? And is actually the thing that's standing in your way you?
Nice. Yeah.
Because very often people will give me lots of reasons why they can't do things.
Yeah.
It's the system that's wrong.
Everything out here.
Everything out here is wrong. Yeah. The system, and they're coming back and challenging me to change the system.
Yeah.
And then changing that system is pretty difficult.
Yeah.
And then you have to take a step back and say, well, is it the system or is it your behaviour?
Yeah.
And then you have to try and work with them to see if they're willing to change their behaviour. Some people are, some people aren't. Some people just can't see it. They're not self-aware.
And that's hard, isn't it? Those people that just categorically can't see. And I remember when I was doing my coaching training, it's like they really can't see it, but if they don't want to see it, and also someone with a bad attitude, they're probably the two hardest things to coach, to try and get someone to change. It's just not possible.
And sometimes people won't admit to you that they can see it, or that
it's scary.
What you're pointing out is right, but what you do notice is that over time they do start to change their behaviour, but they'll just never credit you for having helped them do that. They'll just quietly change, and then you think, oh, okay, great, we've got somewhere, brilliant.
How has influences outside of work helped you? Because I know big runner in what you do. How has that helped you with business?
I got into trail running. I don't know, probably about 20 years ago. Before it was really, really popular, I started off doing marathons. My husband is a great lover of the mountains, so we spend a lot of time in the mountains. And then it was just a curiosity thing of wonder how far we can go. I wonder what's on that peak over there, And then all of these races started springing up that involved being self-sufficient, navigating big long journeys from A to B. When I got into it, people often talk about the lessons they've learned in sport and how that's helped them in business. For me, it was the other way around, which is quite an interesting flip. So it wasn't until I started doing these difficult races that I realised I already had all of the skills of self-reliance, reframing from negative to positive, leaning in and addressing issues along the way before they turned into big problems. Personal organisation. So, most of all, the sort of mental resilience that I had applied throughout my career. I think I learned my endurance
in business.
in business and in agency life, because that first 10 years of my career was really tough. It was late nights, it was weekends, and you just had to come up with every trick in the book to keep yourself going. And then when I started doing these ultra runs, it was like, I'm really skilled at this. I don't know if I can run that far, but when it comes to the mental game, then I can apply all this stuff that I'd been practicing for years and didn't even realise.
I think that's lovely. And talking about that mental game, how much do you use that mental resilience you've got and what you've learned in terms of then helping the people you lead with that?
I think I'm quite lucky that I'm very optimistic by nature. I'm very positive, but I'm also have learnt since childhood to be really self-reliant.
Okay,
and so I have always had to figure things out for myself, and I've always had to reframe things for myself. So that self-talk that you develop to tell yourself everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be all right, and it's not as bad as you think. And actually, Claire, all you need to do is this step, this step, this step, and you'll be okay. Now, it comes as second nature to me, but I realise that that's the thing I need to say out loud when I'm talking to other people. Because it is a gift to be able to reframe on the spot. And sometimes it takes me, I need to sleep on things to be able to bounce back the next day with a positive mindset. But it always happens. And just trying to get people to coach themselves.
It is that self-coaching, isn't it? It's, I think we go to the gym and work out, and we can get ourselves to the gym and do the treadmill, but actually spending that time doing good talk to yourself, knowing what's going on in here. Like, I take just a couple of minutes before I get up in the morning now just to go, how do you want your day to be? Smile before you get out of bed, just be grateful that you're here. And that already just sets my day up in a different way, rather than, got to get up, got to get out. So it is, isn't it? It's like you got to go to the gym for your mind, not just the gym for your body. I think it's so important.
And sometimes it's just get on with it. Just do the hard things.
Keep going.
Just keep going. Just because once you start, once you take that first step, once you get out of bed, once you can make things more intentional by, for example, I go running every day. It's no accident I go running every day. I set out my gym clothes the night before. And no matter what I feel like in the morning, I will make myself get up, put my running kit on. Once the kit is on, that's habitual then. I will then go. And work can be the same. You can just say to yourself, you might not feel like it, but you are going to go and do it.
Get in the shower.
get in the shower, just go and have a coffee. You'll be fine. And you are. Once you get into it, you are fine.
Such a mental game, isn't it? It's such a mental game. You say you've been, you experience, you've learned to be self-reliant. I think if anyone's listening now, something I'm learning hugely is I for my growing up, had a few things happen that have helped me be able to do what I do now. But anyone listening and watching this, it's kind of do something, I think, every day that just puts yourself out your comfort zone as well. Just keep yourself growing. Like, just keep moving forward. It's like this is the first time we've done this in person as a podcast. This is like that growth, that comfort zone. It's just keep giving yourselves those little moments. And what I'd love for you is, where do you want to be a bit more courageous in your leadership now? What's next in terms of where your courage is going to go?
I think I would like to be more comfortable with doing things like this.
Okay.
I'm not a great self-publicist. I haven't put a lot of work into telling the world my point of view.
Yeah.
But it takes time. So you do need to set aside time for it, which means you need to make it a priority.
Yeah.
Because there'll always be too many things to do in a day. But the question to ask yourself is it important? And I think as I become more senior, I realise now that I'm not doing my job properly if I'm not more vocal about my view on marketing, clients, the world, our company.
And your story. And people probably want to really know your story and who you are and how did you become so self-reliant and have the mental mindset that you've got now. You say that you always, the time thing is, I know this, and I coach people as well on this, is when you know that there's something you need to do, but you keep in your company, fill my diary with all the stuff I know how to do. It's like, I didn't get round to that.
I know.
It's like, I know, well, but have you done your videogram yet? I'm like, oh, yeah, I've got to do that, haven't I? And until it's like that last minute, it's like, oh, I have to do it now. I know it's really important. So it is, isn't it, giving yourself that time to, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah, and becoming more self-aware. Now I now know why I'm procrastinating.
Yeah.
It's because I'm fearful of it.
Yeah.
And so now it's about saying to myself, come on now.
Yeah.
You're making excuses, and it's just because it's new, it's different, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So that tells you need
to do it.
You have to do it. You have to do it.
Otherwise you stay stuck. You do. Yeah. Before we finish, I'd just love to know, say 25 years at Iris, I'm sure there was lots you did before then as well, but what advice would you give to your younger self now looking back?
I would say to anybody who has dreams of starting their own company, just do it when you're young. Really do, because starting Iris for me, I don't remember being full of fear. I was so committed to the group of people that I did it with. I was going to leave where we were anyway. So it was an absolute no-brainer. I just couldn't believe how lucky I was to be given the opportunity. And I can remember saying to myself, what's the worst that can happen? You can go and get another job. It really doesn't matter. So I almost tell people it was like falling in love. And that is a truly heart-led decision. So you have to really work out what it is that makes you happy.
Listen to this.
You really have to. And your heart will change over time, and things, what makes you happy day one of Iris may not make you happy day 20, year 25 of Iris. But yeah, it's just go for it.
Yeah.
You have nothing to lose when you're young. You really don't.
Just do it.
I mean, you don't really have anything to lose when you're older.
It's just a bit harder. It takes more energy.
Yeah, you think you do. Yeah. That's interesting, because you think you have more to lose, but do you really?
Yeah.
Weigh it out. What are you losing? Security, comfort.
Exactly. Well, look, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute joy. Before we completely finish, is there any final words you'd like to say to listeners?
I would like to tell people that you are much more tougher than you think. You really, really are. Very rarely do people break from doing hard things. And actually, you'll discover so much about yourself by just stepping into the arena and going for it. Yeah. And if you may fail, you may succeed, but you'll learn so much. But you won't break.
You won't break. I think that's a lovely message. You won't break. Keep going.
Just keep going.
Claire, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for listening and watching with us today. Take care. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. I hope you enjoyed it and got real value that you can take into your leadership. If I could do a quick ask, if you could subscribe, it really helps us to keep bringing an excellent podcast to you. Take care and see you next week.